This is interesting. So there's things notions that I landed on that I wish that certain friends of mine did. And certain friends, I really care about them, right? And I don't want to like bruise their feelings or their egos.
Yeah.
So I kind of like back off. But I have faith. I'm like, he's smart though. I think he's going to get it one day. And it always happens. They always like, you know what, bro? I was thinking about this shit. This shit is kind of stupid. And like, I'd be wanting to write it down. Like one day, so-and-so is going to come out of this, right?
Because dealing with women is self-critiquing. In the Air Force, we had this one thing. We had this joke. It's like if you don't put the gear down when you land, it's self-critiquing because you blow up in a fireball, right? The nose goes into the runway.
Yeah.
You can make that mistake, but you can only do it once. Dealing with women is also self-critiquing. It's just, are you willing to take the lesson? Yeah. If you continue to choose women of a certain ilk, you will continue to get cheated on by those women, and then keep thinking that the women are the problem instead of being able to discern a woman who needs a high level of stimulus in order to be with you. Well, if she needs a high level of stimulus, she's just going to go take a photo with Chris Brown and let him grab her ass.
Right.
That's not the girl you're going to marry. You can have fun with her. You can invite her over with you and your girl, but that's not the girl you should marry. And this other girl, she actually requires less stimulus and brings less drama in your life. But because you're not used to that, you can't tell that that's the good woman. The woman who brings you more peace, and she might not even be as hot, but she brings you more peace. And then you're like, oh, that's the one you stay with for 75 years and have kids with. Okay, now I understand that. But it's self-critiquing. You go through it enough. The problem with men and women, though, is if you and I learn this lesson in our late 40s or early 50s, we can still have kids.
Yeah.
And we'll have a lot of money, be experienced. The problem is if you're a woman and you figure this out when you're 38, oh, shit.
But that's not a thing, though. Generally speaking, not always, I don't date somebody that's over 30. An attractive woman that's over 30 and that's single, to me, is problems. Why are you single?
Yes.
You've had probably too many experiences, right, with men. So you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage that I don't deserve to have to deal with. I typically don't. And here's the thing with people, period, not just women, but men and women. The older one gets, if they're not locked into a growth mindset early, if they're not able to take constructive criticism and pivot and want to be right, they're not going to change the older they get. They get more stuck in their ways, more brazen. They really think that they be telling people, but you're lonely. You know what I'm saying? All right, strong woman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I had a girl one time, she told me in the beginning that this isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
Not by saying that, but she said, I used to be masculine in relationships. I'm like, but you know, I've been doing some work and and I understand and said all the right things, but in my head, I'm like, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. And sure enough, it was just a lot of like, it was good a lot, but those tendencies would come out, right?
Yeah.
When I'm correcting certain things, it was hard for her to accept it. You know what I'm saying? It was hard for her when she would fuck up. It was like impossible to say I'm sorry.
And then when she figures it out, it was her idea. It was never, oh, Mike, you were right. It was her idea that she finally came to this realization. That's one of the reasons why I'm with the girl I'm with now is because after a couple years, she's like, we had spent some time where I was on vacation or I took a trip, come back, and she came to this realization. She comes to me and she goes, I've been listening to all my female friends and a lot of them are 40, 50 years old and they're alone. And I started to realize I don't want to listen to their advice because I don't want their life. And then she was like, and this is when I knew this is a different girl. She goes, I started to realize everything you told me, Michael, was right. Everything you said was right.
Your girl is smart.
Yeah.
She's smart.
It was incredible when I heard it because she was rambunctious when I met her. She's from Southwest Arkansas, you know what I'm saying? And so it was one of these things where like you come to that realization that this works for you and this doesn't, and like, can you take that feedback and understand? Because as men, we have to do that. Right. We're not attractive enough to get through life. Most of us aren't. We're not rich enough when we're born to get through life. We actually have to be told no several times, and we have to become stronger, more proficient. We have to become useful to other men. These are things we have to do. Whereas if you're a really attractive woman, there's this period of time, especially from the time of say 18 to 28, where you can say something fucking crazy and dudes are like, God, I really want to fuck. So I'm just going to listen to this nonsense and not say anything. I'm not going to comment on your ridiculous Instagram post, or I'm not going to say this to your face because I'm trying to smash. And so these women will go 10 years and they'll like, it's like the emperor has no clothes and nobody wants to tell him this. And you get to this point where, and I've had several women come to this realization, but the problem is, when do they come to this realization? Myron Gaines has this really great quote. He goes, women do not truly begin to grow until men stop buying them drinks. At that point, it's like, oh, dude, You know what I'm saying? I started thinking about it as like, yeah, because no one ever bought me drinks.
Right.
So I had to make these right decisions. I had to join the military, learn to become an entrepreneur, stop eating like shit. The military, funny enough, that was the worst I've ever eaten. I was in the worst shape. I had to start eating better, start taking care of my body, cold plunge, intermittent fasting, sauna room, I started doing 4-day splits in the workouts. I started I listened to my friend Jay Cutler, like when he started telling me workouts to do, stuff like that. And from all that, I have to make those decisions, and no one was going to save me. And if I didn't want to do those things, one of the other parts was it was so appealing to go back to being a sheep. My friend Owen Cook, who runs he used to run Real Social Dynamics. Owen used to say, beta males get to eat too. Beta males get to fuck every once in a while. Beta male, it's not that bad being a beta male. For you and me, it would be the worst thing in the world. But for most guys, it's like a beta male, that doesn't sound that bad. And so most guys are going to see the situation. They're like, well, I get one wife, right? I do get a job where I might get some retirement and I can get a credit card. And from their standpoint, they look at that and they're like, that doesn't sound that bad. Yeah. What's the opposite? People make fun of me. People criticize me.
It's not that bad for most people.
Yes.
Right? And it's got to be like that.
Yeah.
Listen, it's just a small space at the top. I mean, look at the Pareto principle, right?
Yeah.
It's always a small output of anything creating the most output of everything, right? So that is no difference with men of certain statures, right?
Yeah.
It's very few, right? So most people have to be regular, have to be average.
Yes.
It's okay. I just tell people, especially anyone within the earshot of me, at least try.
Yeah.
Try. You don't have to accept being average, because life becomes very colorful and very fulfilling when you're trying to peak, when you're trying to hit your potential. And human beings, listen, we got Elon Musk, right? He's a person that tapped into his potential.
Yes.
Floyd Mayweather tapped into his potential. We have incredible human beings, and we're all human beings.
Yeah.
We all have the potential for something great. Now, here's the thing. When I was talking about slave morality, then you have master morality. I adopt master morality, but there's a different type of master morality. So the churches, the government officials, the quote unquote gatekeepers of society, they keep people programmed with slave morality and to keep them slaves, right? Like they want to keep eating off of these people, right?
Well, could you say that about the education system too? They use like these mills that print law degrees for people who are not qualified to practice law. Yeah. They're using you as an annuity.
Listen, it's weird for a teacher to teach business.
Isn't it?
Your teacher.
Yeah.
Just like this lady was trying to go back and forth with me, but I didn't participate. She argued it with herself. She's a psychologist, right? And she thought that my message telling men that depression is a decision was dangerous, right? I'm telling them, work out. Whatever puts you in that situation, start working on it, start fixing it. You ain't got time to be depressed, right? I understand depression is a big monster, right? Looming over many of us. Fight that motherfucker off. Be defiant to it. I did, right? And she's telling me I'm not qualified to speak on these things. I'm like, wow.
But you did. You had depression and then you didn't.
You're not qualified to speak on these things. This is what I told her. I said, man, in all due respect, you went to school 6-8 years, and then as soon as you graduated, that school employed you. So you're teaching what you learned. You have to teach that protocol, right? I'm not going to give you my qualifications, right? It'll spin your head. But trust me, I'm qualified. You're not qualified. You're all theory. And your theory is around a system that doesn't change. They don't modify anything.
Yes.
And it's based around medication, drugging people up. That's dangerous. So that's extremely dangerous.
You were talking about the natural, like you're a naturalist, right? Okay, so what if we did this instead? We started to say the cures for depression exist in our evolution. So let's say 50,000 years ago, the man who stayed in the cave and felt sorry for himself, he did not procure a wife or protein for the tribe to eat. So you're evolutionarily, which guy would get the dopamine hit and the oxytocin reliefs and the serotonin? The guy who kills the game, comes back with it. Me and Brandon Carter used to talk about this. You'd walk in and you'd have the deer. Just imagine the feeling that the tribe that's starving feel, like the cheering that you
get.
You're the guy. There's I'm telling you right now, not even winning a Super Bowl, there's probably no equivalent feeling for anyone today than you feeding the starving tribe and seeing your wife and your kids right there. And we don't have anything like that. And I promise you that that lady, whoever she is, because she doesn't conceive of this concept, can't understand that that man is not depressed. He's not, because
100%.
he provided. Now, here's the thing. Now, what does that also mean? That means the cure for depression for a man is now different than the cure for depression for a woman.
Correct.
I have never seen a guy with a basketball in his hand be depressed. I've never seen a guy who's dating a beautiful woman who is like absolutely obsessed with him be depressed. But yet, if I were to say, get a hot girlfriend and go to the gym, it's like, you're not qualified. It was like, I might not be qualified, but I've also never seen it not work. Now, there's some people that do suffer from schizophrenia, actual clinical depression, these things like this. But my thing is, create a scalable business, start doing things that you enjoy, maybe spend some time in nature, go to the gym, and then try meeting new people. Then after that, if it's still debilitating depression, absolutely go seek help. But do those things first.
Right.
And don't accept from the beginning, hey, this is the easy way out for me to say you have a diagnosis of depression. Therefore, if I have a diagnosis of depression, what have I done? I've taken on an identity. This identity has been pre-programmed for me by pharmaceutical companies. And it's like, and the best part is this, there's no distinction between my depression and a female depression. None whatsoever. Postpartum depression for a woman, that's something men do not experience. Men and women deal with depression differently. Women are twice as likely to deal with depression than men are. And it has mostly to do with the fact that we have 17 times as much testosterone as them. But like when you come to that realization, and then you look in the literature, and not only does it not give different prescriptions for men and women, it literally says things. The American Psychological Association said that they said that traditional masculinity, they labeled it as a disorder. Stop. I know some people think I am exaggerating right now.
That's
Stop
hilarious.
what you're doing and look up APA, traditional masculinity, and they think traditional masculinity is a disorder. You want to think, like, when people say, oh man, there's a conspiracy or whatever, it sounds nuts until you see stuff like that and you're like, oh no, they really are trying to stop masculine men from being masculine because they keep leading in society. There's one other thing though you said about the Pareto principle. Let's actually put the numbers to it. On dating apps, the top 10% of men get 63% of the right swipes. For women, it's the top 43% of women get 63% of the right swipes. So we have more of a distribution.
Right.
For the top 20% of men get 83% of the right swipes. And this one's crazy. The top 40% of men get 96% of the right swipes, which means the bottom 60% of men are competing with 4% of women. That should tell you Pareto principle. Then we look at like body count. There's probably a bottom third of men that like have maybe one or two sexual partners by the time that they're 30. The median or the mean is five sexual partners in a lifetime. When you get to the top 5%, men have had 50 sexual partners. In the top 1%, it's 150 sexual partners. So I want you to consider this. 0 for the first third, then in the mean we're at 5, and then at 150, does that seem like a normal distribution to you? Or does it seem like there's a few guys at the top that are having unlimited success when it comes to money, scaling their business, fixing their social media, dating beautiful women, have higher IQs, live longer lives that are healthier, and then the rest of them, like we said before, are just sheep and they're happy being sheep. And the last thing you were saying before, it's never like getting into that top echelon. It's never been easier because the world keeps teaching you to not be in it. So like me teaching men like actual proper dating techniques. Hey man, get her to talk about herself. To some people, they're like, oh, that sounds Machiavellian. That sounds like you're, being manipulative. Teaching normal dating techniques to the regular world, to big tech and the larger overall media complex, they look at that as being toxic. So what I'm saying is, if you just listen to good advice, because everyone else is being taught bad advice, it's so easy to get in this top 15% now.
Yeah.